Okay, emergency pod number 2 of the week. Tyler Buchner is headed to Alabama. Running back Logan Diggs is entering the transfer portal, and there might be even more player movement in the coming days. I'm going to give you my reaction, thoughts, and more coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to Locked On Irish. Thank you for joining me here on another emergency edition of the podcast, the second emergency pod in a span of 3 days, actually. I did not expect this to happen when the week started, but here we are. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. I just got off work not too long ago. I'm recording this a little after 5 p.m. Pacific time. I think it's only been an hour and a half since Logan Diggs announced that he's transferring, so I haven't had much time to prep for this one. I've got a few things written down here, but I've got just so many thoughts running through my head about Tyler Buchner, Logan Diggs, and what the hell is going on in South Bend right now that I wanted to just lay it all out there and see where that takes me. So I'm just going to go today. All right. So bear with me, guys. There's so much more to these stories that I'm going to continue covering in the coming days and weeks. So to stay up to date on all of that, make sure you're subscribed to the show and following the program and all the social media channels. But let's get into it. And we'll start with Tyler Buchner. So pretty much from the moment that Tyler Buchner announced his intentions to enter the transfer portal, it seemed like he was headed to Alabama. ESPN's Pete Thamel, he broke the news, and then as soon as he did that, he mentioned Alabama as a possible destination for Buchner, and pretty much from that moment on, I realized Tyler Buchner is going to be headed to Alabama here. I don't think Thamel would have even mentioned that unless he had some intel that that's where he was headed, and no one has more intel in the entire college football media space than Pete Thamel. He's one of the best reporters out there, probably the best, especially when it comes to scoops like this. So when he put it out there, I started to think, okay, that's probably where he's headed, and I tried to wrap my head around it because I think like a lot of you, it did not make sense to me, but I really tried to look at it as objectively as possible and try to get a sense of the situation. So I think one thing is clear here. I think Tyler Buchner is more likely to start at Alabama this year than at Notre Dame. He still has to fight for the job, but at least he knows he has a shot. Where at Notre Dame, I don't think he has a shot anymore. I think we all saw the same thing during the spring game this past Saturday. Sam Hartman proved to be the better quarterback than Tyler Buchner. And I know that it's just a spring game, but when you look at their body of work in college, what Sam Hartman has done compared to Tyler Buchner, it's really not even a comparison. And I don't think Notre Dame would go out there and get the top quarterback in the transfer portal and then give the starting job to Buchner. It just didn't seem that way. And even though Tyler Buchner, by all accounts, put up a good fight in spring practice, Sam Hartman is just a better quarterback at this point in time. So, in a way, Tyler Buchner gets to decide whether he wants to start at Alabama or be a backup at Notre Dame. It's crazy that is the decision that Buchner has to make. But from that standpoint, it's kind of a no-brainer, if that is the case. Now, I don't think that Tyler Buchner was guaranteed a starting job at Alabama. I don't think Nick Saban would be cool with that. And to be honest with you, the quarterbacks at Alabama, even though they did not look that good in the spring game, and Jalen Milroe in his limited action last year wasn't particularly impressive, Tyler Buchner really hasn't put out enough tape out there for him to just walk into Alabama and be the starting quarterback. Like, he's replacing Bryce Young, who's going to be the number 1 overall pick tonight, and that's sort of the expectation down there. And to think that Tyler Buchner is just going to walk in and fill Bryce Young's shoes seems like a lot. It seems like a stretch right now. And I also look at it from the standpoint of why would Buchner trust Reese? Like, even though Reese recruited Buchner out of high school and has been extremely instrumental in his development as a college quarterback, Tommy Reese looked at this quarterback room in the offseason, looked at Tyler Buchner, looked at Steve Angeli, and looked at Kenny Mincy and was like, you know what? This is not good enough. I need to go out and get the best quarterback available in the transfer portal to be the starting quarterback for Notre Dame in 2023. And that's exactly what he did. That's why he brought in Sam Hartman. So now Buchner is going back to Reese, a guy who basically just told him that he wasn't good enough, and he's following him to Alabama. And I understand that he has an understanding of the offense, but you would think that'd be a turnoff to some people, but it's clearly not in this situation. It would basically be like breaking up with your girlfriend for someone else, someone more attractive, and then ditching both of them to move to a new city. And then once you've moved to a new city, you actually call your ex-girlfriend and be like, hey, not only do I want to get back together, I want you to move in with me in my new city. Like, that's crazy to think about. It's crazy to think that anyone would do that, but that's kind of what's going on here with Tommy Reese, Tyler Buchner, and their quarterback situation down there in Alabama. And from the standpoint of Alabama, like if you look at it in the simplest terms, it does kind of make sense, I will say. But so if you look at it like this, like Alabama has an uncertain quarterback situation, so they went out and got the best quarterback in the portal. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's that black and white, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But nothing is that black and white. Like nothing, and especially not this. So now Alabama's looking at it like, wait a second. We're getting Notre Dame's backup quarterback to come down here and be the starter, be the savior of this offense, which is clearly struggling. I understand why Alabama fans are so up in arms over this whole thing, because if it were reversed, I would probably be pretty upset too that Notre Dame was going out to get a backup. Like, that's just not really what you want. That's not really a great sell to the program, which is why I think Tyler Buchner is not guaranteed the starting job, but he clearly believes that he has a better chance to start there than he does at Notre Dame. And you know what? He's probably right. So let's say he does win the starting job. Is that a good fit? I mean, yeah, he does understand Tommy Rees's offense and he knows what he wants to do. He gets the play calls and all of that. But like Tyler Buchner at Alabama, Buchner doesn't seem like a guy who is, big on getting screamed at or chewed out at. Now, I'm sure Tommy Rees did that to him several times at Notre Dame when the cameras weren't around. But Nick Saban is certainly going to do that too. And if Tyler Buchner starts throwing pick sixes left and right like he did at Notre Dame, Nick Saban probably not going to be cool with that, all right? Like, if Nick Saban, if it were up to him, he would prefer that all offenses go back like 15 years where the quarterback, all they had to do was hand the ball off to the running back and then not throw an interception in the 15 instances or so a game when they were actually throwing the ball. So Tyler Buchner is going to have a lot of pressure on him, not just from the Alabama fans, but within the coaching staff. Like, it's going to be a lot, and maybe he's up for it, maybe he's not. I think Tyler Buchner is a good player. If you've listened to this podcast, you know that I'm very pro Buchner, and I've been very high on him, and I think that he's a very talented athlete who has a lot of potential at the college level, but I thought he still needed some time, and he was a development project at Notre Dame, which is why I was hoping he'd stick around for one more year and then be the starting quarterback in 2024. Obviously, that's not going to be the case anymore at Notre Dame. So let's look at it from the Notre Dame perspective. Obviously, this stings. Like, I'm not breaking any news there. Notre Dame would be much better off with Tyler Buchner as their backup than Steve Angeli. Now, next year's quarterback situation is even more uncertain. No one really knows who the starter is going to be for Notre Dame in 2024. Now, I will say, Notre Dame was 100% correct in going to get Sam Hartman in the transfer portal. I know I've seen some other people out there who are criticizing the move because it made next year more uncertain. Like, I don't care. The way that quarterbacks work now in college football, they leave all the time. You have to go out and you have to make sure that every single year you can get as much talent in that room as humanly possible and then sort of let the chips fall where they may. Notre Dame got a top 10 quarterback in all of college football to come and start for them this season. That is great. Like, I don't care about anything else. They clearly upgraded at the position for this season, and Notre Dame is better off with Sam Hartman than Tyler Buchner this season. It's worth the risk, in my opinion. And another thing to consider here as you're looking towards the future for Notre Dame, let's go back to 2021 when Tyler Buchner was a true freshman. We didn't look at the quarterback situation in 2022 as like that much of an uncertainty. We all knew that Tyler Buchner was going to be the starter that year as a true sophomore. It was a foregone conclusion. Now, some people might have had their concerns, like, is Tyler Buchner going to be ready? But they're not nearly as loud as the people worried about the situation next year because Steve Angeli is a lot less proven, which I would agree with. I'm not particularly high on Steve Angeli as a backup or certainly as a starter. But let's look at it from the perspective of Kenny Mincy. Like, who is to say that Kenny Mincy can't be better as a sophomore than Tyler Buchner was last year? Now, obviously, Buchner got hurt, and it's not apples to apples, but you see my point. Why are we so quick to dismiss the possibility that Kenny Mincy could be a good starter as a sophomore than we were with Tyler Buchner? That doesn't make sense to me. Now, again, I'm not saying that Kenny Mincy will be a great starter next year, but I'm more open to the idea than some other people are. And as for 2023, yeah, I mean, if Sam Hartman gets hurt now, Notre Dame is probably screwed. But you know what? Most teams are screwed if their starting quarterback goes down. It's actually very rare that it doesn't happen that way. Situations like Ohio State in 2014 when they won the national championship. Braxton Miller was the starter. He goes down. Then they got J.T. Barrett. And then he goes down in the Michigan game. And then their third-string quarterback, Cardale Jones, wins them a national championship. That was crazy in the moment. It's even crazier now looking back on it. TCU last season, their starting quarterback goes down in the week one. Max Duggan comes in, and all of a sudden he's a Heisman candidate. No one would have ever expected that going into the season at TCU last season. I don't care who you talk to. There is no way anyone actually expected that to happen. But hey, it did. But those are the exceptions, not the rule. A story I was thinking about today that John Gruden said on ESPN a long time ago. He once asked Tom Moore why Peyton Manning's backups didn't get more reps in the Colts. And you know what Moore replied? He said, and I quote, hey, by the way, earmuffs, kids, sorry. Quote, fellas, if 18 goes down, we're fucked. And we don't practice fucked. End quote. Notre Dame is going to be in a pretty similar position this year if Hartman goes down. And frankly, that's just the nature of the quarterback business now. It's very rare that you have an elite quarterback and a really solid, dependable backup. You know why? Because that really solid, dependable backup wants to play. He doesn't want to be the backup. So we transfer somewhere else that gives him a better opportunity to start. And that's exactly what Tyler Buchner did in this situation. Yeah, Notre Dame is screwed if Sam Hartman goes down this season. But you know what? If he doesn't get hurt, and if you're looking historically, most quarterbacks don't suffer season-ending injuries, knock on wood. If Hartman is healthy the whole season, Notre Dame's going to kick ass this year. They're going to be awesome because Sam Hartman is awesome. And Notre Dame was always going to go as far as Hartman took them in 2023. So it's clear that Notre Dame is better off with Hartman as their quarterback this season than Tyler Buchner, which is the main reason why Buchner's move to Alabama doesn't really make a ton of sense. Why would Alabama be okay with fielding such an inferior talent at the most important position? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. All right, coming up next, I'm going to talk about Logan Diggs and why we all probably should have seen this coming. Looking for a delicious snack but don't want all of the sugar and calories? Then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. Built, you got to try this. If you're like me and want to make healthier snack choices but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing, you won't think they're good for you. You got to try them. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're healthy, with only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, or you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate bar, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, Brownie Batter Puff and Churro Puff. You can thank me later. Thanks again for joining me here on another emergency edition of Locked On Irish. There's obviously a lot going on surrounding the Notre Dame football program right now after Tyler Buchner decided to transfer to Alabama, which we all kind of saw coming once he announced his intentions to enter the portal. But the one a lot of us didn't see coming was Logan Diggs announcing that he would also enter the transfer portal, which he did on Thursday afternoon. So I don't know how many of you know this. This has sort of been a rumor. It was a rumor last offseason that Logan Diggs was considering transferring. And for whatever reason, he didn't, okay? There's different stories out there why he didn't, but I'm not going to speculate on that. All I'm going to say is it sounded like Logan Diggs, pretty much from the moment he committed to Notre Dame. And if you remember, LSU was very close to getting Logan Diggs to actually go there, but he had already signed his letter of intent, and it was a really complicated situation. That much is out there by this point. So Logan Diggs has pretty publicly tried to leave Notre Dame before. And he kept coming back to Notre Dame, and he looked like a really good player, a really promising talent at Notre Dame. And then now, eventually, like he finally made it official, and he's leaving Notre Dame. This is not a situation like Tyler Buchner where he entered the portal and said, hey, I'm open to coming back. No. Logan Diggs is gone. And he's probably going to go to LSU or Alabama, which obviously stinks if you're a Notre Dame fan, because Brian Kelly is the coach of LSU, and Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator at Alabama. But it's pretty clear that Logan Diggs wants to go closer to home. He's from Louisiana. That's where he wants to be. I get it. Or he wants to be close there, at least. And he obviously has a relationship with Tommy Rees, a really positive one at that. So why did he leave? I don't think you can really look at it at Notre Dame as like the sky is falling here. Notre Dame isn't doing enough. They did everything for Logan Diggs, okay? And at a certain point, if a guy doesn't want to be there, he just doesn't want to be there, and you got to let him go, all right? You don't want to hold a player hostage. If he doesn't want to be around, he's not going to be great to be around for the rest of the guys who do want to be there, even if he's a really talented player. So obviously it sucks that he's leaving. Logan Diggs is an extremely talented player at Notre Dame, and even though he wasn't going to be the starter next season because I think Wojciak Esime was going to have the bulk of the carries, Logan Diggs is going to be a very prominent part of the Notre Dame offense. And you're looking at a guy who rushed for 820 yards last season. He added 4 touchdowns on the ground, plus 211 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns as well. This is a very dynamic player. He had comparisons to Le'Veon Bell throughout most of his career, and I thought he was poised to have a really great season this season, even if he was the number 2 running back in the room. So the one good thing is, if you're Notre Dame and you were looking at one position where they actually could afford a starter or 1B starter to leave, it's actually the running back room, because Audric Estime looks like he could have one of the best seasons a Notre Dame running back has had since, I'm including Kyron Williams in this, obviously, but since Julius Jones. Kyron Williams, I think, is the most talented running back to come to Notre Dame since then, but he's not as big as Audric Estime, and obviously Estime is not as fast and as elusive as Kyron was, but I'm very high on what Estime can do this season, especially with a better offensive line in front of him, one that Kyron Williams did not have in that 2021 season. So they've got a clear number 1. They're good in that regard. Jadarian Price, at one point, before he got hurt last season, people thought that he was actually better than Estime and Diggs. Now, Price is still recovering from an Achilles injury. I don't expect him to be a real prominent feature in this offense until later in the year, once his Achilles has had more time to heal and his body has had more time to train and get that leg back up to speed. Because Price is going to be really good, but we have to be patient with him, even with Diggs entering the transfer portal. You've also got Jabron Payne, who looked really good this spring. He looked good in the blue and gold game, and a guy who Dylan McCullough made a very strong point to get once he became the running backs coach at Notre Dame. He was like, this is a guy we got to get. His recruiting stock had dipped a little bit in high school. He had an unbelievable sophomore season coming out of Cincinnati, Ohio, where there's a lot of really good football being played, and then he suffered injuries in his junior and then senior year, so his stock dipped. But then he showed why this spring he can be a very productive player with the ball in his hands. Is he going to be as good as Logan Diggs? Right now, I'm going to say probably not. But the fact is that Notre Dame has plenty of depth in the room, and I haven't even mentioned running back Jeremiah Love, who is going to be a true freshman. He's going to enroll this summer out of St. Louis. This dude is extremely fast, extremely dynamic with the ball. I thought he would force his way onto the field even if Diggs was on the team and Estime in front of him, because I just think he's that good of an athlete, and he's going to be so talented that the team is going to be like, all right, we got to get this dude the ball. So it's obviously very unfortunate that Logan Diggs is leaving. He's a very talented guy. He's going to be a very good running back wherever he decides to go. But at a certain point, if you're Notre Dame, you got to be like, all right, man, if every offseason you're considering leaving and you're having this problem where, I don't know, you don't like South Bend or whatever the case may be, if he doesn't like being in Indiana, he doesn't like being far away from home, those are things I get, but you got to just let him go. And that's what Notre Dame did. And I think it took a lot of us by surprise, but this actually happens a lot in college football. I know that it really hasn't happened to Notre Dame yet. Like, Notre Dame hasn't really lost a big-time player, someone who has done a lot with the program to the transfer portal like this yet. But it happens to a lot of teams, even the good ones. Good teams lose good players to the portal all the time. This is the state of college football right now. It just is. And it's unfortunate. Obviously, I want these guys to stick around because, it's a lot more fun when you're watching guys and you watch them basically grow up right in front of your eyes, especially a guy like Logan Diggs, who played as a true freshman, watching him grow from his freshman season into his sophomore season, which didn't come without some ups and downs. Hell, he didn't even play in Cal as a DNP. I think they said he was sick, but he was a DNP. Like, he's had a really up and down career so far at Notre Dame, and I think this is just the way it's going to be throughout the rest of his career. I do hope that he succeeds at wherever he goes next, and like I said earlier, I think it's probably going to be LSU or Alabama, and it's going to piss off a lot of fans, and I'm obviously going to be a little bit annoyed. I wish he was still at Notre Dame, but look, this is just the nature of college football right now. Guys are going to leave, but the problem is guys are leaving at other schools, but those other schools are capable of getting other guys in the transfer portal to come to their school. That's not really the case at Notre Dame so much. It's a one-way exit. Notre Dame really needs to figure it out. I'm going to tell you why coming up next. Okay, looking at this big picture now, it obviously sucks losing Tyler Buchner and Logan Diggs to the transfer portal, and there might be more guys to come in the near future. I would actually expect that to happen. I don't know if it's going to be players of like Logan Diggs' caliber, but I would expect we're going to see more player movement in the coming days. It's not great for Notre Dame right now, but I don't think that either loss is going to dramatically impact what Notre Dame does in 2023. As I just said in the previous segment, I think Notre Dame is going to be okay at the running back position. And then if all goes well, Tyler Buchner wouldn't have played much at Notre Dame this year anyway. If you want to look at the future, that's a different problem. So let's start to consider that now, looking ahead to the future for Notre Dame. Notre Dame is in a really bad position right now when it comes to the transfer portal because every team in college football is dealing with this right now. Guys leave. Good players leave. Bad players leave. Guys at the bottom of the depth chart, they want to go because they're not getting playing time. That's been happening for a long time now. That's fine. When good players start leaving, that's when it gets concerning. But other programs are able to replace those good players who left in the transfer portal with good players in the transfer portal from other schools. Notre Dame, however, is limited right now to only getting guys who are grad transfers or undergraduate transfers from like-minded universities academically. Schools like Northwestern with Brandon Joseph, Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, not necessarily college football powerhouses, to say the least. So Notre Dame has to figure that out. They absolutely have to figure out the transfer portal if they want to be serious about winning national championships. I know Jack Swarbrick has said that they are, that they're investing more into the football program, that they want to compete at the highest level. And I know that Notre Dame is always going to do things a little bit differently. I get that. I know that they're not going to really dramatically change the academic standards for getting in. I know that. But this transfer portal thing, they can figure that out. But for whatever reason, this has really slowed the program down. I mean, you can point fingers at a bunch of different people. All that matters is it's got to get fixed. The only positive thing that can come from all of this, right, with Buchner leaving, Lorenzo Styles leaving, Prince Kollie leaving, potentially more guys leaving too, is maybe it's a wake-up call to the administration where Marcus Freeman goes up to him and says, guys, look at what is happening right now. I'm bleeding out. Guys are leaving, and I can't fill those spots with other good players. Hopefully, people in the Notre Dame administration look at it and be like, all right, we get it now. We see what's happening here. We've got to get this figured out if Notre Dame wants to keep the pace with all these other top programs in college football. Because like I was saying, guys leave. Look at Georgia. They lost Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander had a sack in the national championship game. He was a 5-star defensive line recruit. He's going to USC. Now, Georgia is probably going to reload with another either 5-star recruit or another really good player in the transfer portal because that's what they're capable of doing. USC is making a living off of the transfer portal right now. And look at how far that's gotten them in just over a year under Lincoln Riley. It's crazy their turnaround. That's not an option really at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is never going to be able to do what USC did in the transfer portal, and that's okay. I understand that's not going to be the standard at Notre Dame ever, and I'm okay with that. But the disparity cannot be as big as it is right now. Notre Dame cannot willingly let good players walk out the door every single year without any hope of replacing them with other good players in the portal. You can't do it in recruiting because these things happen late. It's April 27th. So if Notre Dame would have known that Logan Diggs was going to leave and Tyler Buchner was going to leave, maybe they would have changed how they recruited, but that's not how it works. You got to replace these guys with other transfers. That's how all the other big-time programs are doing it. Frankly, Notre Dame doesn't have that capability right now, and it is a big, big problem facing the university. I would say arguably of all the things, all the challenges that Notre Dame football is dealing with right now, the transfer portal, it might be the biggest one. It might be bigger than NIL. Now, granted, NIL, the transfer portal, they're sort of linked together. A lot of those things, like a lot of transfer portal NIL opportunities, it goes hand in hand. Like guys are getting offered more NIL at other schools, and then they go into the transfer portal, and that one thing leads to another. I don't know if Diggs was offered a lot more NIL money to leave. I don't think that's really what it came down to here. And I don't think that's the case with Tyler Buchner either. I think they were both making pretty good NIL money at Notre Dame, but they wanted to leave for different reasons. I think Diggs wanted to be close to home. Buchner wanted a better chance to start. Okay, that's fine. Notre Dame needs to replace them, and right now they just can't. Marcus Freeman isn't playing with like one arm tied behind his back. It's both arms at this point. And as much as we love him, as much as we love his intensity on the recruiting trail, he needs help. And he needs help fast if Notre Dame is going to figure this out. So this has got to be figured out by, the higher-ups at Notre Dame. They got to think about what they want to do. What is going to be the approach to the transfer portal? Because right now, this ain't it, okay? And like I said, I expect more guys to leave. I don't think they're going to be as good as Diggs, but it probably will happen because this is just the state of college football today. And at this point, as a fan, I understand why you're upset. I understand why you're frustrated. I hate watching these guys leave. Like I really like Tyler Buchner. I really think he's a Notre Dame guy, and it's unfortunate that this is the state of college football where he can just leave at any time and he can go to Alabama, be the starter, and we're going to have to be watching him potentially win games on Saturdays. But I understand from their perspective, they got to do what they got to do. Like, I have no ill will towards Tyler Buchner at all. I don't even have ill will towards Tommy Rees. Now, I know people are going to be upset that Tommy Rees is going out and getting a Notre Dame quarterback, but, like, that's his job now. He left. His job is to do whatever he can to make Alabama the best they can be, and that's what he's got to do. It's unfortunate that Notre Dame, in this case, was hurt by that. But even if Tyler Buchner had not gone to Alabama, he would have gone to somewhere else. Like, there was another school out there that would have offered him a job or would have offered him a chance to start, and that probably is what he would have done because he's a junior at this point. Like, he can't wait around any longer. He's already waited around all of last season because of his injury. And even in 2021, I'm sure there were times where he thought he should be starting that season, and he didn't. So he's had to wait for a really long time. He came into high school with a ton of hype. He's dominated everywhere he's been, and now he's going for a better opportunity. Diggs is a different circumstance. As I was saying earlier, it seemed like he had one foot out the door the entire time he was at Notre Dame. It's unfortunate, but most students, if they are at a school that they don't like, they just transfer. I transferred. Now, granted, I transferred into Notre Dame, but you get my point. This stuff happens a lot. It's the state of college football right now, and it's either adapt or die, okay? And Notre Dame this season, I still think they've got plenty of good things going their way. They've got plenty of reasons to be excited about this season, and I think right now we're sort of caught up in a bunch of bad news, and let's be honest, most news in the offseason is typically bad. Last offseason was a little bit different, obviously, because you got a new coach, new regime, new vibe, new energy. Things were great. Most off seasons aren't that great. And I was actually thinking about this today. This is obviously right now, it does not feel like a great offseason for Notre Dame. It doesn't even compare to the offseason post-2012 season when things were just so crazy. So this happens, but Notre Dame can bounce back from this. Like I said, I don't think that Diggs leaving and Tyler Buchner leaving is going to drastically impact what Notre Dame does this season, unless, of course, Sam Hartman gets hurt. But even if Tyler Buchner stayed and Sam Hartman got hurt, Notre Dame probably would have lost more games than they would have if Hartman had been healthy. So it's unfortunate that Notre Dame is in this position. I get it. I understand why you're upset, but I don't think this is the end of the world. Now, Notre Dame clearly has some things they need to figure out. They need to get things addressed, and hopefully they will. I'm hoping, praying, please, Notre Dame, look at what's happening right now to Notre Dame. Look at what's happening to your roster. Look at what's happening in college football. You need to figure out the transfer portal. If you don't, Notre Dame is just going to keep going further and further behind the top programs in college football. It's going to be even harder to win than it is now. And guess what? It's pretty damn hard right now. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys for joining me here on another emergency edition of Locked On Irish. The weekend's coming up. I will not be doing a show on Saturday or Sunday, but next week we're going to have guests on. We're going to have a lot more to talk about. We're going to have more news. We're going to hopefully have a little bit more information on these stories, and I'm going to try to figure out what's the plan for Notre Dame going forward. Remember, subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Irish, on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account at Tyler Wojciak. That's at Tyler, Wojciak. I'll see you guys soon.